Hello everyone. Okay, so this is the second part of the series. So in the first part we checked how we can create a web part using SPFX, which displays the web parameters and the user parameter dynamically, getting from the web itself, SharePoint Online. In this one we are going to create the same web part. Only difference is that we are going to do this through the React framework. So I'm doing this so that you can have a comparison, the difference between React and no framework that we are using for building the same component. Okay, so let's do this. In the same demo folder, let me create another folder, is with React. Okay, so the first command is always, if you have the environment setup, is yo space at Microsoft /SharePoint. So this is going to create the web part for us. Name of the web part will be with React web part with React, and we are going to use React framework to build this. Okay, so the web part is created. Now let's open it. Code space dot. Okay, so this is the SRC folder, and we have some more items in here. We'll come to that, but before that let's run gulp serve and see what it has for us. Okay, so let's see what it has for us. Same thing which we previously had, the username, name of the web part, and then welcome to SharePoint framework. So let's go back to our code. Okay, so in the SRC, if you see, we have a web part, and under web part we have assets, IOC, which previously were also there, manifest.json we had previously, TS file, right? I have the NJF file here with me so that a comparison can be done. So if you look here, we have the manifest is there, .ts is there, CSS is not in here, right? Asset and IOC is there. So CSS is not there, and in here we have component, right? Now if you click on component, right, the CSS is present in there along with properties and the React file .tsx. So if you see, you have two extra files under the component. So there is a section by the name of component which is there, and under that you have two new files, right? prop.ts and with react.tsx, the React file. Okay, So now let's see the main code. Okay, the 3 files. So these 3 files we are going to see, and CSS we will modify same as previously, right? So in here if you see import React, so this is React framework, so it is importing style is from that CSS file, and that properties file is getting imported in here from the component, right? Then export default a public render, so this also has a render function and return, right? And this is where which we saw, right? This all is written in here. So what this file has done, right? So if you see here, right, so same thing, this is importing React component, React DOM, right, library, property pane, which we are not using in this one, export, and this also has the render function with React, and it has this dot property dot description, this, right, the values. So and it is returning those values to the DOM, which we have here, right? So what this file has, the properties, so this is nothing but this is available to the whole interface, the properties, a description, a dark theme, environment, has team context, user, display, string, right? So what is happening, I will show you through this. This is the properties file, this one, right, where the properties has been defined. And this is the txs file, the React file, right, where I've shown you that the DOM HTML code is there. And then there is the ts file, which also has the public render function, but where we don't have the HTML and the coding in there, right? That is here. So how this 3 parts is related is, in the txs file DOM you will define your HTML code in there, right? The properties that you are going to use there, that separately we will define in the properties folder, properties file, that will be used by the ts file as well, right? What the ts file does is, ts file actually gives values to those parameters, right, which are being used in the HTML code. For example, the site URL, right? The site URL you will mention here that it should be said as site space URL or site name. You give in the HTML code that it should be seen by the end user, seen by the one who is going to the website, has site name. Okay, what that site name, now that is a property that you defined here, and site URL is the property that you defined and you named it site name. Under site name, what will be reflected, that value will come from the ts file. Okay, the ts file will give the value to that site name, if whether hard coded URL or some other URL has to be given, all that come from the ts file. Okay, imagine from this analogy, like this represents a garage. Okay, so you see the overall whole structure of it from the outside, you see the shutters and everything. So this is acting as a garage, right, where everything is kept. Now within this, what we are going to keep, a truck, a car, a two-wheeler, what you are going to keep, right, what it's going to hold, that will be here from this file, ts file. Okay, now this is our file, so let's try to implement this and try to make sense of it. Okay, between these three files. So from our previous entry we have, if we go to the site, right, we have how many parameters? 1 2 3 4. Let's define those 4 parameters first in here. Okay, so okay, so I have defined those 4 parameters: absolute URL, title, relative URL, username. Okay, now let's go to our DOM HTML coding. Okay, so let's remove this that we have, and the same code we don't need this. So this we are going to delete. Okay, now let's define our this file as well. So just like previous file, right, let's copy this and let's paste it. Okay, so we are done with the properties file. There are 4 properties that we need. We have defined those 4 properties file. We have given the background and we have given the table as well, right. Yellow, instead of this we are going to have green this time. Okay, green and yellow, or let's have white. Okay, all right, so CSS file is done, properties file is done, and this is our DOM or the HTML, and how the when the browser opens how the page will look like. All that coding is in here. Okay, so if you see in the render method, what we are returning is from the class style class we are taking with React, that we have mentioned in here with React, right, that will have the background, and then we have our table. So first row we have the absolute URL. This time $escape is not there, right. If you see from this one, see this had $escape. Okay, $escape this dot context dot page dot web dot absolute URL, but instead here we have escape dot this dot properties dot absolute URL, right. This absolute URL, if you click on this absolute URL, it will okay, let us absolute URL title, relative URL, username. Okay, so if you click on this absolute URL, it will take you to this property file, right? Remember, from this drawing, right, this has property defined, so that's why when I'm clicking in this file, txx file, here for this property, it's going to this property one. Similarly, title, like relative URL and username. So till now there is no value in the absolute URL. What is the absolute URL going to show you? Nothing. It has no value till now. Okay, so this property is defined, CSS is normal, leave that, right? In here, this is our DOM. So this is the structure that we have defined, how it's going to look like. There will be a table which will have these 4 parameters, right? If we want to just name this URL, we can write it as URL or absolute URL is, so we can change the structure or how it's going to look like in the browser itself. Okay, but the values are not defined in here. So now we go to our TS file, right? Remember, so this is the garage where we have kept everything, but what is going to be kept inside we are going to mention in here, right? So this is why it shows red, because from the properties we have removed that. Okay, now in here we are going to okay. So absolute URL, right? If I go and right click on it, see it's taking me again to that property for file, right? I am on the TS file. When I'm clicking on that, it is taking me to the property. So this is how the linkage is being made, right? This file, this property is going to the property, and that is what is getting reflected in here, right? If you click on in here, this also goes there. So what it's going to hold, we are going to mention that in here. This dot context dot page context, from the page web it will pull out the absolute URL. Now if you do a right click here and go to the definition, it will take you to that SP web class where it's pulling the value. So this is where we have defined the value that's going to go in there. Okay, so great. All right, so I think we have everything in place, right? I hope everything was understood. So this is the values were defined in this TS render method, right? How the structure is going to be, that was in the TSX render method, and the properties are in this prop.ts. Okay, so now let's do one thing. Let's do gulp surf. And here we have it. So green background, right, and white is the table color, and it's pulling the values, right? So it's working. Okay, so you saw the linkage, right? What a linkage we had between the, so this file purpose is to give the value, right? And then the property panes, if you have, right, all that can be in here, but this is supplying the value in this particular case, and this is the HTML div coding that it's going to handle in here. Again, we are giving a table, first row absolute URL, right? All that is been provided in here, and this is the property. So now to the question of between the no Java framework and this one, why or which one? So similarly, see, in this no JavaScript framework, any changes that I make in here, right, will reflect. If I want the color to, but this I don't want to touch, right? I just want the formatting to change, the table to look different, the color to look different. So I don't have to touch this file. I can directly come to the CSS file and make all those changes, and that will be reflected here. So this is more systematic uh, and structured way of doing things, right? That's why I put it in a separate file. We can have this CSS also included in the HTML with the HTML coding itself, but we keep it separate so that they are segregated better. We'll be able to better manage them. Same concept, if you see, applies in here, right? If the code is very big, very long, right, if it goes even more lines and you have absolute URL, and it goes till, you don't have to come and do anything in here in the structure, right? You, if in the absolute URL from in this parameter, instead of this, if you want to reflect something else, right, like in the username, instead of username you want to reflect the email address of it, so you don't have to make the changes here, right? You have to just change the value that it is pulling in here, right? And that change will reflect in there. So if the DOM structure is very big and the codes are going lines on lines, so you don't have to search for where is that particular parameter that you wanted to change the values for. You will just directly go to this file and change the value. So it is more structured in that manner, and that is why this can be used. And the properties also, you know which properties has been defined, right, where they are placed. So for all those purpose, this becomes a better choice. Okay, all right. So first, once we have tested our files are working, we will do a gulp build. Okay, gulp build dash dash ship. Gulp bundle dash dash ship. So we have done gulp build for production, gulp bundle for production, and the last one that is left, which will give us that sharepoint folder generated here, will be gulp package solution dash dash ship. And there we have it. So this is our with React SPPKG file. Let's go to app catalog, upload it. Now we don't want it to be available across organization. Deploy. And let's go to our site. Add an app from my organization with React. It's done. So with React we have added in here, and we can see that. Let's publish. And there we have it. So when I started this series, the first one that I showed, right? So this is the web part in React, green and white, and yellow and white is your without React. And we can say in here green and white, right? This is the React one, and red and white, this is the non framework, no framework. So this is how both can be done, right? In see, we have already deployed just as to have more linkage and connection between ts file.txx file and this properties file. See, absolute URL, I've changed the value and I've given a string, my name, right? And that, if you see, it's been reflected here. So the value of absolute URL got changed. Okay, that value we provided in .ts file. If I go to here, and instead of this absolute URL, if I just write URL, right? So now if we refresh, it's running. You see, URL, right? So what will be the structure, right, in the URL? What will be inside the URL? That value you can directly and go in change here. So this we don't have to go and change anything, right? This remain absolute URL as it is, space without space, right? The structure remains as it is, and the values you keep on going to the value and keep on changing it, right? So this I wanted to display. Okay, so if you see in here, it is working. So I'm just showing you after that the changes if we made, what happens, right? I've made it back. Okay, I have not saved this file. Control S, right? And from this URL it will change to absolute URL. Absolute URL, done. Okay. Okay, I just want to show one more thing. See, if in this file we remove what is below, right? Everything, not everything should be removed, right? There is some part that is needed, but if we do that, right, so this is just an add-on, right? So I will just paste it here so that we can come back. Okay, so now it is giving us an error that this is needed, so that we gave. Okay, right, done. All this, if you see in here, we are getting uh, one error, right? See, it says error Microsoft Pair React DOM. So we have already deployed and it is working in the environment, right? Alright, so this error that we are getting, right? See, error Microsoft Pair React DOM render unmount, pair the render and unmount call to avoid memory leaks. So if you see, gulp build, okay, so it gave a warning in gulp build, but if you put gulp build dash dash ship, right, so see, it gave us the error build failed due to a task wrote output, and that is nothing but this unmount is missing, right? And the file is our ts file. So this is our ts file. So remember, from this file at the end we removed everything, right? But I said that something might be needed. So control, we say for example you don't know what changes will be needed. Okay, so this is ChatGPT. In ChatGPT we have put in our code. It tells us what the code is, what it is doing, right? Okay, now if you simply write here what is wrong with the code, there doesn't appear to be anything inherently wrong with the code. It is properly importing necessary modules and applies to be structurally sound. However, there may be some issues with the functionality of the web part or issues that may arise during runtime. It would be helpful to have more context understanding of the requirement of the web part and how it's intended to work in order, right? Now I'll just give the error. And it says it says to fix the error you can call the react dot, right, how to give the code to fix it. Okay, so second one, I'm not using the use effect. So this is our code, right? If you see the render method, we have absolute URI, title, relative URI, username, and the ROM. And after this part, right, this part is not there in our code. So let's have that in our code. Okay, Control S and gulp build dash dash ship. Okay, there are a lot of unused, so that we already see, we can remove all those. This is not used, this one is also not used. Okay, and see, there is no error, it's been resolved, right? From what I removed, I've kept the code here. So if you see, I've removed this as well, protected on dashboard wise react dom dot unmount component at not this dot dom element, right? And this was not supposed to be removed, rest could have been removed, and that's why I was facing the issue, right? Here we have it. Okay, so this is how the ChatGPT can be useful. We can check our code, see what's wrong, and put that back in. Okay, so this concludes the part 2 as well, with the React component, how we can design the SPFX web part. Okay, I hope that the linkage between the TS file, which is putting the value in there, and the properties file under the component, and the React file where we actually have the HTML and the structure, is clear, and this is all that is there, the difference between the React and the Node framework. SPFX. That's all from my end. Have a good day. Thank you.